Hi guys, so I wanted to share my experience being a psychic, a seer, a sensitive, whatever you want to call it, because I know that there are a lot of people out there who have similar experiences and don't know what's going on, or maybe you have a child and they're telling you some things have happened, you're like whatever. But I think that for me it was really really weird because growing up, uh, nobody in my family told me that this runs on my mother's side of the family. And if you don't experience it, you probably won't understand it when someone tells you something. So I just want to kind of give you guys this as an example and then get to talking. So this is a green piece of paper. Say that. Yeah. This is a green piece of paper. I'm looking at it. It's a green piece of paper. See it? Cool. You say no, it's not. It looks orange, right? I say no, this is green. You say no, it's orange. You're crazy. It's a green piece of paper. So just because something is not visible to you does not mean it's not visible to somebody else. So just a little roll into that. My first thing that happened to me when I was 9 years old was being home alone, blasting music. We had like a 3 foot tall old school speaker. On the speaker was a mug. In the mug was a set of cassette tape cleaners, and they were smaller than pencils. So usually when you're like blasting music, whatever's on top will rattle off and drop, right? The cassette tape cleaner was just like best thing, closest thing, smaller than a cassette tape cleaner, sitting in the cup, smaller than a pencil, and it came up out of the cup, went over, like flew, and then slid across the floor and stopped. I'm home alone. I run outside. I'm like, I gotta go, but I have nowhere to go. Like, it was late at night, so I'm like, what the? Okay, fine. So tell my mom and my sister since they come home, and they're like, you're lying, blah, blah, blah. But all of this crap started happening in our house. And I'm like, oh, okay, y'all want to believe me now when crazy stuff started happening to you. And then I think when I was about 19, we moved and we had a 3 bedroom apartment. I had the room that had no windows because I like it dark when I sleep. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and my room was, which is normally pitch black, was lit up in gold. The whole room was gold. And me, knowing that I want to know that I saw what I saw, I said, open your eyes. And then talking to myself, like, open your eyes wider, wider, wider. And I'm looking at this woman. I'm like, okay, blink, blink. Make sure you know that once you blink, they're open. And this woman in like a gold robe, the whole room, when I tell you everything's gold, everything's gold. And she was sitting in my laundry basket, like this is the basket. Her feet were like in it. Somehow she was like sitting on the edge of it. And she just turned her head and looked at me and smiled. And I'm wide open, blinking, like making sure that I'm not asleep. And I'm sitting up and I'm blinking and blinking like I am. Okay, I'm blinking. My eyes are open. I know they're open. And I'm just looking at her and she's looking at me. It was a beautiful feeling. And I blinked once and twice more and she was gone and I went back to sleep. Uh, I have seen my roommate's father who is dead. I have seen my homeboy's father who has passed as well. I've seen my best friend's ex-boyfriend's mother, who was like a mother to her, brought her to tears. And it has been very interesting. I have a lot of clients, and like I said, I have had, if I didn't say already, I've had my clients because my clients have told other clients, and then they will say, "You remember when you told me that?" And I go, "I don't remember," because sometimes I just don't. They have to tell me what I told them last time. It's a very humbling thing to be able to be very open to get messages, and it's a very humbling thing to have people be open to kind of letting you into them to see what's written. And what I mean by that is I always start off my readings by saying life is two solids, life and death. Okay, two solids, and in between, let's say life is A and death is Z, and then you have your missions, the things that have to happen. Like let's say B is you're supposed to get in that car accident when you were 12 years old, and then maybe G is you were supposed to have a miscarriage so that you can be wise to other people and their pain and their sorrow when you get a little bit older and people start talking to you about that and you actually have some wisdom to tell them. Um, maybe you tell them something like, I did miscarry my first child and I eventually had five. So it's okay. And a lot of times when we suffer, we don't think like it's a purpose, but then you become wiser and you're supposed to share that wisdom and hold somebody's hand and say, I made it through it. You'll be okay. Let me hold your hand for now. So a lot of people suffer and don't know why they suffer. And I believe that is it. Everything in between is kind of like free will until it's time for you to do that thing. Kind of like when people say like, I never thought I would live in this city, or I never thought I would have a kid, or I never thought I would do this or that, and then you feel like you were forced into it. Those are your solids. Those are the things that you signed up and said, I want to suffer through this, or I want to, I'm going to experience that, or I'm going to birth 3 children so that, they can continue doing beautiful work on this earth once I'm gone. So a lot of things we do sign up for. I do have tarot cards because they're kind of nice guide to help me sometimes when people are being very standoffish. For the most part, I rarely use them. But as far as just things happening, having a daughter, there's always life around my daughter before her birth. And there were some cats that gave birth. Of course, she's born in the spring, so duh. But they just are been very close to home. So there were some cats that gave a cat that gave birth on my patio, like 48 hours before I went into labor with my daughter. And the next year there was a baby squirrel that followed me into the house and ate bananas. It's on my Instagram page if you want to see the squirrel. Then I eventually picked him up and put him outside. So when I was a kid, I was very close to nature as well and could, I wouldn't say communicate with, but be calm enough to have encounters with animals a lot closer than a lot of people did. So depending on, what's happened to you, or maybe I'm really doing this for people that have kids that are telling them things like, I hear voices, or, I see things. I remember telling my mom for the first time, and, her response was, well, what do the voices say? And the thing about being a kid is you're very, very sensitive when you're a kid, and sometimes you don't hear you don't get a filter to say you're only going to hear good voices. Sometimes you do hear negative thoughts, or not negative thoughts, but you do hear negative words or voices, or you do get negative suggestions, and you do also get positive suggestions. And some of the weird things are having to walk up to people and tell them things, and I go, like I'm at dinner. But the other thing I want to say about that is there are a lot of people who are full of shit on this earth. And yes, there are a lot of fake prophets. And there are a lot of people who try to manipulate people through different things by like saying, oh, I had a dream that so and so, was cheating on you, or I had a sorry, or I had a dream that so and so was gonna do you wrong or something like that. Sometimes people who do have like a steady history of being right will use one moment to try to lie to you, to manipulate you, to do something, or to get you to do something. So keep that in mind. And then people that walk up to you out the blue and say something to you, I always say make sure there's confirmation, not from them, but usually if something is for you, it will be confirmed. And when people walk up to you out the blue and go, something, it's like, okay. If it is going to be confirmed, it will turn out to be true, or maybe somebody else will tell you something later on, something similar, and then that's what confirmation is. Like I had a lady who told me, your mother told me to tell you to paint the ballerina. And I was very early in my pregnancy. I didn't tell her, who was always with her daughter, that I was pregnant. And she came back like 2 weeks later and told me that. And I said, I'm pregnant right now, and I'm waiting to see what it is. And it is a little girl. So that was kind of dope. So those moments, like I said, will be confirmed. So you really have to just kind of I mean, there are 1,000 videos now where there weren't when I was growing up. There are a bunch of books, different. I'm sure there are seminars, different people you can talk to. I think I'm gonna do it. I know I uploaded already another video on how to tell if you're going to like a fake psychic or basically a hustler versus a real one. And I just want to say, if your child is saying, I hear voices, please just, take an opportunity to think maybe your child has a gift and it is a different way to go. There are people who have gifts and who still have mental I don't know what the politically correct word is, mental sensitivities. I've suffered with depression my whole life, and a lot of that comes from the fact that I am very sensitive. I can't watch animals being tortured. I would never want to see a child starving, like, and I'm not talking about some little snot bucket that is just like, I'm hungry. I'm talking about starving children where their rib cages are showing and their muscle fibers are breaking down and they can't walk anymore. That I just can't. Because I'm very, very sensitive. And a lot of that does throw me into a depression because I just cannot understand, with all the money and the wealth in the world, how that still occurs or how people can be so cruel to torture animals. So for me, I do still suffer from depression. There are some people who do have, like I said, mental disorders. A lot of the psychics and the seers in ancient times and ancient places, they were a little, special. They were because, everything that there is to deal with kind of can put you in a very interesting place. So, and you don't always see somebody's, nice relatives. Sometimes you see some things that you don't want to see. And I remember that was a part of something that happened when I was younger. I would see people's faces melting and then they would die. And I remember praying after I saw my grandfather's face melt and he died a little bit later. That I said, God, I don't want that gift. And now I'm a little older, I could probably deal with it because I could deal with death a lot better. But that was one part of my gift. I was like, I don't want that anymore. So I'm trying to work on now opening my gifts back up. But I don't want you all to shun your kids or decide that they need a ton of medication. I saw a video on what autism is like. And to me, that's very, very close to what my childhood was like. Things were just, that's the way I saw. Things were brighter. They had brighter colors. Some things I would look at, certain words would stick out more than others. Sounds were more melodic to me. I guess a way to try to explain it. Like, where maybe you listen to music on a 2, I heard it on a 5, and I heard every little bit of the song. And a lot of people, that we like to call crazy, or we find out later, they were called crazy, were geniuses, They're like, you, but, 100 years later, they're like, oh, so-and-so was the most amazing painter in the world, or so-and-so was a genius, and he figured out, quantum physics, but at the time, they were like, he's weird. She's weird. But, I do truly believe we are medicating our children a lot more than we should be. And it's because we are getting detached from our natural cultures. Every single culture in some way, shape, or form has a form of a witch doctor, a psychic, a seer, a shaman. You know, we even used to respect our town elders, to have wisdom. And just the simple basic, if you ever had, like, my stepmother called me the other day and said, I had a dream you were crying, are you okay? And we had to talk. And, sometimes it's just that simple. And sometimes it's that we don't tap into it or we don't practice it. But please don't send your kids to just get a ton of medication before maybe you check into that. They could have a totally different gift than, I would think that my child would have a gift versus saying my child has a disease or disorder. Now, some people do truly have things wrong with them, but I also wonder how many very psychic people are in insane asylums, because my mother didn't have to say, what do they say? She could have said, excuse me, she could have said, oh, okay, we're going to take this little crazy child and get her locked up. So, You know, that little child that said they see grandma and grandma been dead for 14 years. You know, imaginary friends. You know, so just know that it is possible. Trust me. And you know, kids tell the truth a lot. Sometimes it's just not what we think we're gonna hear from them. So that's it. Hope this helps somebody. Is I know every time I tell somebody something, they're like, "Me too," and this happened and that happened. I'm like, I know I'm not the only one. So it's nice to be at a place in my life and a place in society where saying that out loud is not taken as such a, you know, demented conversation, a demonic conversation. I know I've been challenged left and right by people who are very, very religious, but I think often we are religious and we forget what our cultures taught us within the spirituality of that culture. Sometimes people are just so detached from their culture. So, you know, whatever, to each their own. You know, I'm sure people bitch about this video, but if you like it and it helps, I hope it helps make somebody feel a little more normal, because you are. You're not, well, you're not normal. You're actually very, very special.